Fear and Hunger 2 Termina is the sequel to one of my favorite indie horror games, Fear and Hunger. The original game managed to revitalize my appetite for the horror genre, a genre that unfortunately has become inundated with mediocrity. Its brutally unforgiving mechanics, coupled with its dark and oppressive atmosphere, immediately captivated my attention, so much so that I decided to make a 2-hour-long video essay about it. With this in mind, I went into the second game with fairly high expectations, and I am happy to say that not only were those expectations met, they were exceeded. If you are unfamiliar with the Fear and Hunger series, they are extremely cruel and punishing survival horror RPGs set in an equally domineering universe, filled with all sorts of grotesque abominations and Lovecraftian horrors. Termina managed to improve on almost all the aspects I enjoyed about the first game, while also simultaneously addressing the criticisms from the community. As much as I would like to expand on these statements, it would divert the focus of the video. For Fear and Hunger 2, I wanted to dedicate an entire video to examining the lore and story of the game, as there is much more content to unpack compared to the original game. If you are interested in hearing my thoughts on the game's design and mechanics, let me know by leaving a comment and liking the video. Please keep in mind that all the theories I present in the video are my own and should not be taken as canon. Of course, I will provide evidence from the game to back up my speculation. However, this could always change in the future when more content is added. Also, while I will provide context where necessary, I recommend that you watch my video on the first game if you are not familiar with the original Fear and Hunger. A quick disclaimer before we begin. This game deals with sensitive subject matters and is not for the faint of heart. Viewer discretion is advised. At the crux of the lore of the Fear and Hunger universe are the gods. There are 3 main categories of gods mentioned throughout the games: old gods, new gods, and ascended gods. The old gods are hailed as the true primordial deities of the world. However, it is implied that most of them have parted from our planes of existence a long time ago, leaving behind only traces of themselves. The old gods possess unimaginable power, and even the tiny speckles of existence they left behind are too much for any mortal to compete with. The total number of old gods remains unknown. However, from an artifact in the second game, we see 10 runic symbols that seemingly correspond to old gods. In the first game, we were introduced to 4 of the old gods: Grogeroth, the god of destruction; Sylvian, the god of creation; an unnamed god of the depths; and the trickster moon god, Rare. Termina gives us information about one more old god, Venushka, the god of nature. She is the offspring of Grogeroth and Sylvian. There are 2 conflicting accounts surrounding the details of Venushka. One believes that Venushka was killed by mankind, only leaving behind the god's traces. The other claims that it is impossible for man to accomplish such a feat. I am personally more inclined to believe the former account, as the author of said version is a more reliable source to say the least. The idea that humanity was able to defeat an old god, at least partially, is incredibly important. It tells us that perhaps not all old gods are equal in terms of their power, and at least some of them can be destroyed. This is also backed up by the fact that we quote-unquote killed the god of the depths in Fear and Hunger 1, albeit in a severely weakened state. New gods are humans who attempted to obtain the power of the old gods, but ultimately fell short in this monumental task. They are still far superior to mortals, being able to live for multiple centuries and possessing tremendous strength. However, they are nowhere near the level of the old gods. There is only one known method of becoming a new god at the moment, which is by sitting on the throne of ascension in the ancient city of Mahabre. The throne transports its passenger to an endless void, a realm where the old gods used to reside. It is there where they shed their mortal shell and ascend into something greater. Once a new god is defeated, they are taken to the Hall of the Gods, a resting place for fallen new gods. It is here they sit idle, lamenting in their frustrations. However, it is still possible to summon new gods from the hall through certain rituals. The main new gods featured in the first game were a group of 4 new gods known as the Fellowship, who sought to replace the old gods but failed miserably. There was also a new god by the name of Nasra, who realized the futility of his existence and sought to destroy the Fellowship and all the other foolish new gods. The new gods introduced in Termina play a much less prominent role in the story, simply serving as vendors and optional boss fights. This also speaks to how irrelevant they have become in the modern times. The last category of gods, ascended gods, is a term introduced in Termina. It refers to beings who were once mortal, but managed to achieve power on par with the old gods. It is theorized that in order to become an ascended god, you need to have a divine lineage, as well as have some significant catalyst trigger the ascension. There are only 2 confirmed ascended gods in the Fear and Hunger lore, the first being Alll-mer, the Ascended One. His original backstory presented in the first game was that he had a miraculous birth from a virgin mother, fathered by a false god, and that he ascended into godhood after being crucified by the jealous kings and sultans of his time. Termina presents an alternate account for the birth of Alll-mer. It is thought that a deity by the name of Vitruvia created Alll-mer as what she envisioned to be the perfect human. Not much is known about Vitruvia, including what type of god she is. All we know is that she is a master architect and that the old god Sylvian ordered Vitruvia to create a blueprint which she used to create mankind. It has yet to be revealed which account of Alll-mer's creation is correct, so we will remain skeptical for now. The second ascended god, the god of fear and hunger, was actually birthed at the end of the first game. So let's briefly recap what happened in Fear and Hunger 1. 4 adventurers enter the hellish dungeons of Fear and Hunger in search of a man by the name of Lagarde. 2 of them wish to save the man. 1 wants to learn more about him, and 1 wishes to murder him. Lagarde was a man prophesied to usher humanity into greater heights. On his quest to fulfill this prophecy, he utilized brutal methods and stepped over everyone in his way. This is what ultimately led to his imprisonment in the dungeon. Sometime before his captivity, he fathered a child with one of the new gods from the Fellowship, Nilvan the Endless One. As fate would have it, his daughter would also end up in the dungeons of Fear and Hunger. So, what happened to our 6 protagonists? Well, let's start off with what we know for certain. Lagarde's daughter is taken to the Heart of Darkness, which lies within the corpse of the God of the Depths. There she transforms into an ascended god, the God of Fear and Hunger. The birth of the God of Fear and Hunger marked the start of the Cruel Age, bringing significant advancement to mankind. It is also confirmed that the Dark Priest Enki made it out the dungeon, and even authored a series of books called the Skin Bibles, which provided detailed information about the old and ascended gods. Now things get a bit more blurry. There is no mention of either Kahara or Das in Termina. However, given Das's irrational affection for Lagarde, her fate is likely tied to his. It is theorized that Kahara took the girl to the Heart of Darkness, dying in the process. but there is no real evidence to back this up other than the fact that there was no one else to take her there. Let us leave the fates of Legard and Ragnvalder a mystery for now, and piece together what happened to them as we move through the events of Termina. If you're enjoying the video so far, do me a favor and subscribe. This video took a ridiculous amount of time and sanity to make, and maybe by subscribing you can restore some of that sanity. Fear and Hunger 2 Termina is set 350 years after the events of the first game, in the year 1942. The game opens with 14 passengers on a train to the city of Prehevil, located within the country of Bohemia. Termina takes place in a completely different country than the original, which, if you remember, was the country of Rondon. Both Rondon and Bohemia are located in the same continent of Europa. Bohemia was previously under the occupation of the Eastern Union, a military alliance between multiple Eastern European nations. This changed after the Second Great War, during which the Bremen Empire attacked the Eastern Union. The Bremen Empire is a powerful, rapidly growing nation that established their prominence after the First Great War. Under the rule of a man referred to as the Kaiser, they would continue to expand their territory, eventually setting their sights on the country of Bohemia. For some reason or the other, Kaiser wished to secure Bohemia's land by any means possible, and was even willing to start a Second World War to achieve his goal. The Kaiser is described as an enigmatic figure who seemingly appeared out of nowhere and rose to power at an alarming rate. His magnetic presence, coupled with his brutally efficient campaigns, allowed him to quickly gain the support of both the masses and the Western nations. With Kaiser at the helm, the Eastern Union stood no chance against the Bremen Empire and have subsequently relinquished their control over Bohemia. The reasons behind Kaiser's obsession with Bohemia remain largely unknown, although it may have something to do with the technological experiments the Eastern Union were conducting there off the books. Very little information is known about the Kaiser, as he limits his interactions with the public and hides his appearance under a yellow cloak. His only goal at the moment is to unite the entire continent of Europa under a single banner. If you are at all familiar with the first game, you should have already figured out who this Kaiser figure is. A captivating personality that draws people towards him, the goal to create a unified land free from violence, and a figure covered by a yellow cloak. This perfectly matches the description of Legard, or rather, the Yellow King. It seems he survived the events of the first game one way or the other, and managed to prolong his life over the past 3 centuries. How this was done exactly, well, we can get into that a bit later. For now, let us focus on the protagonists of this story. Among the 14 passengers on the train to Prehevil, 8 of them are currently playable. These playable characters are the ones we know the most about, due to their backstories being explained during the intro sequence. Dan is a doctor from the country of Rondon. Both his parents were worshippers of the old god Sylvian, and would regularly take part in the bunny mask orgies we witnessed in the first game. Dan despised the life his parents lived. They would continue to spend more and more time away from home, until one day they never returned, likely lost in a trance. At the young age of 13, Dan was left alone, forced to take care of himself. He tried to lead an honest life and started working as a butler for an aristocrat by the name of Baron Einar von Dutch. Over time, Dan grew close with the Baron's daughter, Elise, and the two would eventually marry with the Baron's blessing. During this time, von Dutch would pass on his medical knowledge as a doctor to Dan in exchange for information about the old god Sylvian. The Baron seemed to be oddly fascinated with the occult, but Dan did not mind this. For the first time in his life, he felt happy and content. However, this happiness would be short-lived. Once the Second Great War broke out, The Kingdom of Rondon would enlist all able men to support the Eastern Union in their fight against the Bremen Empire. Dan would be appointed as a field medic. The war was cruel and inhumane. The only thing that kept him going was the letters from his wife. Only one day, the letters stopped abruptly. As soon as the war ended, Dan immediately rushed home. When he reached the manor, he found it to be lifeless and in disarray. After searching nearly every room in the house, Dan eventually made his way to the basement. The floor was covered in ritual circles and blood, and at the center of the circles was the corpse of Einar von Dutch, his body covered by multiple self-inflicted wounds. He was seemingly trying to perform some sort of sacrificial ritual. Dan's heart sinks when he discovers one of the main sacrifices for the ritual. His wife, Elise. She has been brutally killed by her own father. Dan desperately tries to save his wife by any means possible. He makes use of all the knowledge he acquired from the Baron and his worthless parents, and even sacrifices his own eye in the process. However, his attempts are to no avail. Elise is already too far gone. In a state of despair, Dan tries to find out what drove the Baron to commit such an atrocity. He raids his possessions and finds multiple mentions of the city of Prehevil. On a quest for answers and closure, Dan sets out for the city. Marina is an occultist born into a family of dark priests located in the city of Prehevil. The firstborn son of every follower of the church is expected to follow in their father's footsteps. Marina's mother, wanting to spare her child of the cruel fate of becoming a dark priest, raised Marina as a girl despite being born as a boy. Her father did not seem to notice or did not seem to care. Either way, Marina would eventually leave her hometown to study the occult arts in the holy city of Vatican. She was clearly very talented and things were going well for her until one day she received a letter from her father informing her that her mother had passed. The letter was cold and undetailed. Furthermore, Marina could not get a hold of her father telephonically. With suspicion in mind, she decided to return home to Prehevil to confront her father. Levi is an ex-soldier who, like Marina, is a native to the city of Prehevil. His childhood is filled with nothing but painful memories. For many years he endured the abuse of his alcoholic father, until one day his mother was killed in the process. He was subsequently taken to an orphanage, which was arguably just as bad as living with his father. Levi suffered unspeakable horrors during his time there and yearned for the day he could leave. This day would come much sooner than expected, as after Kaiser initiated the Second Great War, the Eastern Union would draft any able-bodied person into their army, regardless of age. At the tender age of 13, Levi was forced to fight on the front lines. Due to his prowess on the battlefield, he would eventually be given his own squadron of child soldiers to lead. Over the course of the war, he would watch most of his subordinates die before his very eyes. This in turn took a significant toll on his psyche, and he turned to heroin to ease his pain. At his wit's end, Levi deserted the army and is now on his way back home. Marco is a boxer from the city of Vatican. Both he and his sister were orphaned at a young age, forcing Marco to take part in underground boxing matches as a means of survival. After some time, Marco's sister would garner the attention of a prominent figure in the mafia world by the name of Ricardo. Ricardo would help Marco further his career by funding his training and organizing matches. However, the mobster would eventually show his true colors when he demanded that Marco kill his opponent in his next match. The fighter was an ex-family member who Ricardo wished to get revenge on. With his sister in the palm of Ricardo's hand, Marco had no choice but to comply with the order. After the deed was done, Ricardo would continue to use Marco's sister as leverage in order to get him to do more dirty work. Marco would eventually come to the realization that the only way to break him and his sister free from Ricardo's clutches was to kill him. After crushing the weasel's skull, Marco had to quickly leave the city of Vatican to evade both the police and the mafia. He planned to meet with his sister in the country of Rondon, but did not have the luxury of time, so he took the first train out the city, which happened to be going to Prehevil. Karen Sauer is a journalist from the nation of Bremen. From a young age, Karen was always skeptical about Kaiser and the Bremen Empire. In a very short time span, he went from having no prior involvement in the country to effectively controlling it. After some digging into his past, she uncovered connections between Kaiser and a secret society called the New Gods. The New Gods were thought to be a mysterious group of individuals who steered the course of many nations from behind the scenes during the cruel age of history. According to Karen's research, it would seem the group is still functioning in the modern era and also had deep ties to the past two great wars. Once Karen heard news that the Kaiser signed a peace treaty shortly after occupying the city of Prehevil, she immediately suspected that this was his goal all along. In an attempt to discover what secret the city holds, Karen decides to travel to Prehevil herself. Abella is a mechanic from the kingdom of Oldegard, the same country Ragnvalder was from. During the Second Great War, Abella stayed home to help her war-torn country with her expertise in engineering. On one particular evening, she encountered a foreign man from the kingdom of Rondon. He had been severely wounded on his way here. After patching him up, the man reveals that he is part of an underground resistance organization called the Nameless Liberty Underground, NLU for short. Their purpose being to combat both the Eastern Union and the Bremen Empire. The man tasks Abella with transporting some important documents back to Rondon in his place, which she gladly agrees to. After arriving in Rondon and meeting with the other members of the NLU, they ask Abella to join their movement. Wanting to be a part of something greater, she accepts their offer. The NLU had multiple spies placed throughout the various regions of Europa. Collaboratively, they were able to discover that the Eastern Union was developing some seriously powerful technology within the country of Bohemia, and that the Bremen Empire desperately wanted to get their hands on it. Unfortunately, the NLU had lost all contact with its members in Bohemia's capital city, and are thus unable to gain any further information. Abella, wanting to discover the truth of the matter, heads to the city of Prehevil herself. Olivia is a botanist born within the nation of Bremen. During her teenage years, she suffered from multiple small strokes, leading to the loss of function in both her legs. Olivia has a twin sister by the name of Rayla. Their relationship is complex to say the least. It seems to often tether back and forth between admiration and jealousy. Her sister was her superior both physically and intellectually. Rayla was quite literally a genius, and was even enrolled in an exchange program between the Bremen Empire and the Eastern Union. This was of course before the Second Great War. Under the Eastern Union, Rayla would become involved in multiple top-secret projects conducted across Europa that were supposedly for the betterment of mankind. The Bremen Empire would eventually grow suspicious of Rayla's activities and imprison her for treason. However, this imprisonment was short-lived, as she would soon be broken out of jail by the NLU. It is likely that she had become a part of the group during her time in the Eastern Union. Rayla had been sending correspondence to another NLU member at her university, which Olivia finds. The letters are very cryptic, but it seems that the Eastern Union were trying to replicate an ancient cube, but failed. Rayla also says that she suspects the Kaiser is after one of their projects in Prehevil, but she plans to get there before him. This is ultimately what led Olivia to Bohemia, to find her sister and make sense of the mess she has gotten herself into. Osar is a yellow mage from the continent of Abyssonia. He left his birthplace early on in his life, wanting to distance himself from their archaic beliefs as well as fearing getting caught up in the great wars to come. Osar would begin his journey to learn about the occult at the Temple of Aman. There he would learn of a group of magical practitioners whom his worldviews were much more in line with, the Yellow Mages. In the current era, the Yellow Mages are far less prominent than they once were. They have separated themselves into small groups in which they wander the earth in pursuit of their agendas. One particular group happened to be residing in the Eastern Sanctuaries, the birthplace of Kahara. The group immediately recognizes the potential in Osar and allowed him to join them. His travels with the group would eventually lead him to a famous wizard by the name of Hadil Azif. The wizard was planning on leading an expedition to the dungeons of fear and hunger. For some strange reason, Osar almost felt compelled to agree, as if something was calling him there. The closer Azif and his crew got to the dungeon, the more and more people abandoned the expedition. The immense otherworldly pressure emanating from the dungeon was enough to drive off even the most veteran of mages. By the time they arrived at the dungeon, Osar was the only one capable of continuing. Osar's intro sequence is unique in the fact that you are able to partly explore the dungeons of fear and hunger through a text-based adventure. Based on the choices you make here, you will be able to gain additional items and equipment that will aid you going forward. While exploring the dungeon, Osar would encounter a large humanoid creature well over 2.5 meters tall. Its body was abnormally muscular. Its left arm had been replaced by a crude weapon, but most notably, the monster's head was that of a crow. The crow mauler had somehow survived the events of the first game. The captain of the dungeon just refuses to die, and 300 years later, he is still a force to be reckoned with. Even a powerful mage like Osar stands no chance against him, and any attempt to fight the beast will result in death. Our only option is to run. Osar manages to temporarily outmaneuver the crow mauler by running across a shaky bridge. As the crow gives chase, the structure collapses under his hulking mass, causing him to fall into a dark ravine. The chasm is very deep, and he shouldn't have been able to survive the fall, although given he was already able to return from death twice, we cannot be certain. In the very depths of the dungeon, Osar comes across a Bremen campsite, which they previously used on an expedition to this place. Under the orders of the Kaiser, they were to seek out an ancient cubic artifact, most likely the Cube of the Depths. The voice calling Osar towards him gets stronger and stronger as he delves deeper into the dungeon. In the ruins of the ancient city of Mahabre, he finds the source of the voice, a severed head, burnt and withered. It's the new god Nasra. He seems to have suffered significant injuries since we last saw him. We can only speculate what happened to him, but the burns are most likely a result of being vaporized by the old god Grogaroth. Despite his pathetic appearance, the old wizard remains egotistical and foul-mouthed as ever. He demands that Osar serve him, as he is the progenitor of the Yellow Mages and their ideology. Osar humbly agrees, acknowledging the strength of his master. There was a lot he could learn from the new god's centuries of knowledge. Nasra orders Osar to travel to the city of Prehevil, as there is a man there he wishes to kill. In addition to this, the old wizard promised that events of cosmic proportions would be taking place in the city, events that would shape the future of mankind. He did not provide any further details, but this was enough to pique Osar's interest. Now that we are familiar with the main cast of Termina, let us begin examining the events of the game. While on their way to the city of Prehevil, everyone on the train falls into a deep slumber at the exact same time. They dream of a young woman in a pink blouse and red shoes. Olivia recognizes this woman. It's her sister, Rayla. From Abella's backstory, we learn that the leader of the Bohemia branch of the NLU would be wearing red shoes, and this is exactly what Rayla has on. Following Olivia's sister, we enter a room that clearly cannot be connected to the train. Here we are ambushed by a creature called the Janitor. Some of the more outgoing characters choose to fight the beast, while the more timid ones comply with his commands. Of course, not everyone is able to best him in battle, and as a result, pay the price for their failure. The Janitor wants us to assemble cube-like structures at a workbench. They are highly reminiscent to the Cube of the Depths, which allowed us to access the ancient city of Mahabre in the Dungeons of Fear and Hunger. Rayla is working here too and gives us a signal to follow her. Doing so, we are transported to the Hall of the Gods, where we can find the new gods we defeated in the first game. Before we have time to do any more exploring, we are whisked away to an extremely tall tower. Standing in front of us is a mysterious being with a sinister smile on his face, and behind him is the moon god Rare. Osar, due to his rigorous studies, is the only one of the passengers to recognize the old god. Ah, there you are. I got you pulled out from that nasty place. You were going deep into that rabbit hole. Now you are safe under the beautiful green hue of the moon. Welcome to the Moon Tower. What is going on here? That is what I'm here for. To explain the situation you are currently facing. To explain the great once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that has fallen within your grasp. Since our words could not possibly reach my master, I speak on his behalf. And who might my master be? Well, for now, let's just say he is the delinquent one. Ra, the trickster moon god. And me? You can call me Perkele. I am just a humble servant of his celestial majesty. The name Perkele does sound familiar to Osar, but he is not quite sure where he heard it before. You are the dreamer. He is the dream. My master has invited you to join us in this jubilee of cosmic proportions. 14 candidates, but only one true victor. The festival of Termina is upon us. Osar finally remembers who Perkele is, the deity linked with the festival of Termina. Details surrounding the festival are sparse, but it is often associated with times of great turmoil. Many of the great massacres in history have resulted from the festival. I don't want any part in this. But it is not a matter of want any longer. My master doesn't give options, and frankly, neither do I. This must all be very confusing to you, so I won't burden you with any more information at this very moment. If you manage to progress further, I will gladly answer your questions later down the road. Let us meet again under the moonlight. The dream ends, and the passengers on the train begin waking up. They notice that the train has stopped all of a sudden, even though we have not arrived at the city. Some of the passengers have gathered outside to have a meeting. Oh, the pretty lady got up. What's going on here? Oh, there were still people inside the train? We don't really know what's going on. The train left us all here, at the outskirts of the city. All the train personnel, everyone, gone. I tried to check up the train, but couldn't get it to move an inch. Now I'm no train driver, but I'd say the thing is busted.
Maybe I can help. I know a thing or two about trains.
Oh, well, aren't we in luck?
Abella examines the engine and finds nothing wrong with it.
So how does it look?
Everything looks fine to me.
Oh, well then, it's a mystery, all right.
Maybe we could introduce ourselves. I'm Abella. My name is Marina. My name is Olivia. Lovely to meet you all.
You may call me August.
Karen Sauer, a journalist on duty.
Hey, I'm Henrik. If you need help with anything, let me know. And this mystic gentleman over here is Osar. It was Osar, right? Silly man. I'm pretty sure it was. We were the first to wake up.
Before you came out, we were talking about this. You saw a peculiar nightmare as well, didn't you? You saw a dream too? Everyone saw the same dream before waking up in the train. The moon, the girl in the pink dress, the festival of Termina. It all felt too real to pass off as just a dream. Not this talk again. We should have questioned that Bremen pig before he left. He was in way too much of a hurry to leave. I bet he knew something. This smells like a sadistic army experiment. Exactly something the Bremen army would be part of. They had similar hallucinogens experimented on war prisoners. Now that the war is over, they had to get their guinea pigs elsewhere.
I wish I had your capacity and feist, but I really have a hard time believing every conspiracy theory floating around.
I'm a journalist. I've covered wars, you know. I don't need some flaky eye-patch foreigner telling me what's possible and what's not. You haven't seen what I've seen during these past few years.
I've covered wars too, you know. All men and women for the past decade or two have covered wars. What was your point again? I've seen my fair share of hallucinogens as a doctor, and I can tell you from first-hand experience that there are no known chemicals that can create visions that vivid, especially visions that are identical with this many people.
Tensions seem to be rising within the group. I take it we're done here. As much as I'd like to, I don't have time to play happy campers with you people. I have a job to do. Which way is the city?
The city is north from here.
You know this place, or is it just a hunch?
Kids these days. I navigated the 7 seas as a wee lad. Let's just call it a very educated hunch. See that tall tower looming in the mist? That is what we call a landmark. You use one to orientate yourself with the surroundings. In this case, orientating is a fairly easy task, even for a city-dwelling metropolitan like you. That tower stands in the middle of the city. Just head towards it and you'll be there in no time.
Thank you for those condescending instructions. They tell you to respect your elders, but sometimes you guys make it very difficult. Alright then, if I see anyone, I'll let them know you guys are waiting here.
Karen leaves for the city, while the others hang around the train a while longer.
Abella continues to examine the train, but it doesn't seem like anything will come of it. The train was most likely stopped by Rur or Perkele to prevent us from leaving Prehevil, forcing us to partake in the festival. At the moment, we know very little about the Termina festival, other than that the 14 passengers on the train are all contestants, and that there can only be one winner. During the meeting, we were introduced to 2 more of the contestants, Henrik and August. Henrik is a 32-year-old chef from the Kingdom of Rondon, who came to Prehevil to further his culinary skills. Other than those basic details, not much else is known about him. August is not at all keen on divulging any personal information, and simply states that he is passing through the city. There is clearly more to his story. but we will get to that a bit later. Absent from the meeting but still present at the train is Tanaka, Caligura, and a very suspicious young girl. Kira Tanaka is a businessman from the Kingdom of Edo. He has traveled to Bohemia to expand his family's business overseas. Tanaka apparently has an important meeting in the city and is adamant on attending it, despite the situation. Caligura is a mobster from a rival branch of the mafia family Marco previously worked for. Despite recognizing him, Marco has no idea why the thug has come to Prehevil, but fears he may be after him. Caligura is extremely rude and closed off, refusing to answer any questions. He eventually leaves the train once pestered enough. At the very back of the train, we see a black-haired girl poking her head out the cabin door. She immediately shuts the door as we approach and refuses to come out. She seems to know Marina, but doesn't tell us much more than that. We now have made contact with 12 out of the 14 total passengers on the train. The other 2 left as soon as the train stopped. One of them we are already familiar with, the child soldier Levi, and the other was the Bremen pig Karen referred to. We will surely encounter him later on. We will start off our horrific adventure from the perspective of Dan. Out of all the playable contestants so far, he seems to be the most level-headed and rational, already establishing a leadership role in the meeting prior. Furthermore, as one of the older members of the group, he probably feels an instinctive desire to step up to the plate. After grabbing a map of Prehevil from inside the train, Dan begins surveying the surrounding area for anyone that can help us. In the outskirts of Prehevil, we follow a trail of blood to a pair of butchered corpses. One has been pinned into a broken shack, the other has had its limbs severed. The bodies are relatively fresh, which makes Dan put his guard up. Continuing on the path laid out for us, we bear witness to an even more gruesome sight. A woodsman brutally murders a person before our very eyes, shouting at the top of his lungs that Termina is upon us. He then turns his attention to us. The woodsman is clearly out for blood. Luckily for us, we took the weapon from the janitor we defeated in our supposed dream. After disarming the crazed man from his axe, he tries to attack us with a detachable appendage on his crotch. But we saw this coming and were able to dodge and defeat him. For some reason, there is a lone goat outside the woodsman's house. And despite witnessing 2 bloody deaths, it seems calm and unbothered. Inside the woodsman's house, we find the lifeless body of an old woman who we presume to be his wife. She has seemingly taken her own life, leaving behind a note that reads, "I'll reunite with my lover on the other side." But if she died before we killed the woodsman, that means she was having an affair. In the woodsman's bedroom, we find a note from the man lamenting in his sorrows. He writes about a beast who entered his house and took his wife. The only thing matching the description of a beast is, well, this fellow over here. But that can't be the case. At least that's what Dan tells himself. After playing detective, Dan heads back to the train to inform the rest of the group of the dangers lurking around them. However, it seems that most of them have already left for the city. Knowing how dangerous it is out there, Dan sets off to find the others before it's too late. Abella was sighted heading into the Maiden Forest, so we start by going there, as it is the closest area to our location. On our way there, we are attacked by a pack of headless hounds. They look exactly like the Jaggerjaws from the first game, except they have no head. It's a wonder how they are even alive. After dealing with the mutts, we come across what looks to be a hatch to an underground tunnel. As soon as we open it, Abella makes an appearance. She seems to be curious about where the hatch leads and suggests we investigate together. Inside the tunnel, we find a formal hat, drenched in sweat. It looks awfully similar to the one Tanaka was wearing. After watching Tanaka's head get brutally sawed off, we are introduced to what serves as the crow mauler of this game, Needles the Clown. Needles is a terrifying stalker-like enemy who will follow you around the city of Prehevil. He is exceedingly cruel and seems to take pleasure in hunting us down, often taking and wearing memorabilia from his prey. As the name suggests, he uses needles as his primary source of weaponry, injecting us with all sorts of harmful substances. He is far too powerful for us to fight at this stage, so we choose to run and hide until we lose him. The power in the tunnel seems to be shut off. Luckily for us, there's an emergency backup generator, which we switch on after refueling it. With the power back on, a maintenance elevator becomes available for use. Taking the lift down, we see a phantom of Olivia's sister leading us somewhere. She takes us to a contraption called a telectroscope, of which there are 3. They are supposedly connected to something referred to as the logic, and all 3 need to be switched on to activate the logic. We are not sure what any of this means, though it is likely related to what the Eastern Union was developing, and more importantly, what the Kaiser was after. Out of sheer curiosity, we decide to switch on the device. On a corpse of a Bremen soldier next to the telectroscope, we find an eagle brass key and a note saying that the Kaiser is expected to arrive in the city very soon. Depending on when the note was written, he might already be here. In the room adjacent, we notice a ritual circle with the sigil of the moon god engraved in it. Stepping on the circle transports us to R's dimension. Its wooden structure reminds us of the workshop from our dream. The moon god's realm seems to mimic the real world, evident by the twisted and grotesque counterpart of the telectroscope. Fighting our way through hordes of R's terrifying puppets, we manage to escape and return to our world. Here we meet the final contestant. Oh, you made it out alive. Good boy. Who are you? Lieutenant Pav at your service. Remember the name well. What about you? I recognize you from the train. It is only polite to introduce yourself. My name is Don. I'm a doctor. Well then, Don, be on your best behavior. It's dangerous around these parts, and doctors going rogue are not especially appreciated. I take it you found the key for the city gates? Yes, that's the one. Good. I would have gotten it myself, but you never know what lurks in the deeper depths of the soil. Besides, the festival is only at its beginning. I don't want to do anything too risque just yet. Now, I know that you can be a reasonable person, Don. So, would you do me a favor and open those city gates? I have some very important business to attend to within the city. The Bremen lieutenant is suspicious to say the least, though he was surprisingly cordial for one of Kaiser's henchmen. We continue our search for our comrades by heading to the city. On our way there, we pass through an old town next to a lake. The villagers seem to be in great distress. Their skin is peeling off their face and their minds have significantly deteriorated. They are referred to as moon-scorched, hinting that their condition is a result of the moon god's wrath. Most of the moon-scorched villagers are passive. However, some of them who have been further affected by the disease will be aggressive. It would seem that before we arrived in the city, the citizens of Prehevil also had dreams of Perkele and were forced to kill each other in what we presume to be a prior festival of Termina. Given that there are multiple surviving contestants from their festival, it could mean that their moon-scorched condition is a punishment for not participating. Ra's moonlight is said to reveal the truth beneath the human filth. So is this what we truly are? Or is it just how the jealous moon god perceives us to be? Deeper into the old town we find Karen. It seems that she was also attacked by some of the villagers, but with the help of her pistol she managed to escape. Unfortunately, she does not want to join our party at the moment and is still insistent on entering the city to get to the bottom of this mess. The entrance to Prehevil is blocked by a locked gate. To open it, we need 2 keys, one of which we already have from the underground tunnel. In the basement of one of the houses in Old Town, we find Levi in a state of panic, but he immediately dashes off before we can even get close to him. After scouring most of the Old Town for the other key, we decide to rest our weathered bodies for a bit. We come across a fairly well-maintained manor that appears to be safe for the most part. As our consciousness drifts off, we are once again taken to the moon tower. Prehevil provides us with a bit more information regarding the festival, and regrettably confirms our suspicions that to end the festival of Termina, we must kill all other contestants. Even worse, we only have 3 days to do so, and if we fail in this task, we will most likely end up like the citizens of Prehevil, victims of the moon god. But this cannot be the only way. There is still much we don't know, like why this festival is even happening in the first place. There must be a reason aside from carnage. Returning to the mayor's house, we encounter a very strange creature sat at a dining table.
Newcomer, just in time for dinner. Sit down.
The hulking monster is surprisingly capable of speech and is seemingly non-hostile for now. However, we don't have the luxury of time at the moment. I don't have time for this.
You had better make time. I am the mayor after all. The mayor is inviting you to a candlelit dinner.
I'm in a hurry to get to the city.
No one gets to the city past me anymore. I hold the key.
Given the mayor has exactly what we need, we decide to appease his request. Maybe I can make time for dinner.
Good. Newcomer, isn't it peaceful here? I am glad to see you're not a complete loony yet, unlike those others. You saw those people, didn't you? One can only wonder what happened to the folks around these parts. Some say it was the moonlight that scorched this land. Newcomer, you haven't touched your food yet. These are rare delicacies you can only find in Prehevil. I've traveled from afar just to experience them. Pick these, for example. Don't they look absolutely delicious? Use your imagination. What comes to mind when you look at these dangling beauties?
Considering Don's medical background, all he is able to see in the food is what it exactly is. Kidneys.
I understand where you're coming from, but you don't need to look at them so literally. Let's see. Yes. What about this little squirmy thing? What comes to your mind?
The mayor passes us a plate holding a phallic-shaped object. I dare not say.
Oh, but I insist.
Male genitalia.
Such vulgar talk on my dinner table?
It seems the mayor did not like our answer and now challenges us to a fight. Our attempts to calm him down are futile. We have no other choice but to kill him. Despite his silly yet sophisticated demeanor, the mayor is an extremely formidable foe, far more powerful than the enemies we had to deal with so far. After an extremely tough battle, we managed to defeat the gentleman. While the mayor may at first seem like just another citizen disfigured by the moon god, there is actually more to his story. Upon the mayor's death, we absorb his soul, the suffocated soul. When we previously spoke to Henrik outside the train, he informed us that his zodiac sign is suffocated, which corresponds to one's soul type. You may have also noticed some similarities in the clothing both the mayor and Henrik wear. Our suspicions can be confirmed by visiting the moon tower in our dreams and seeing Henrik's portrait crossed off. But how exactly did Henrik end up transforming into this abomination? We were under the impression that we had 3 days before the moon god started working his magic. There must be other factors that can speed up Rur's moon scorching. We really need to find the others as soon as possible. Now that we have both keys, we can open the city gates. Despite the gates being over double our height, August casually vaults over it and heads into the city. He is clearly no ordinary man, as he would have us believe. Entering Prehevil, we are attacked by moon-scorched policemen. From them, we learn that a martial law forcing citizens to stay indoors was put into place to prevent contamination. They were likely trying to prevent people from being exposed to Rur's moonlight. Clearly, this didn't go as planned. In an abandoned restaurant, we once again find Levi. He is shaking and sweating profusely. "Are you okay?" Levi shakes his head in agony. Dan notices injection marks on his arm. He is clearly having withdrawal symptoms. "Is there anything I can do?" I don't need help. I need to deal with this myself." "Hang in there." Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do for Levi at the moment. We don't have anything to appease his withdrawal symptoms, and he doesn't seem to be in any condition to move. At the very least, he should be safe if he stays inside this building. We will make sure to come back for him later. Wandering the foggy streets of Prehevil, we are reunited with a malevolence that we are all too familiar with. A finely dressed man with the head of a cat. He exudes an extremely wicked aura. Oh, here I am busy with my own business, completely ignoring this beautiful chap. My deepest apologies. Pleased to meet you. You may call me Pocketcat. The Pocketcat is a deceptively evil entity we had the displeasure of meeting in the first game. Though he presents himself as friendly and well-meaning, his true intentions are far more dark and twisted. The Pocketcat is a servant to the moon god Rare, his purpose being to stop the formation of ascended gods. And how does he do this, you ask? By finding and eating young children. Specifically those who possess the potential to become an ascended god. But the Pocketcat's depravity does not end there. It is also alluded to that the villain gets some sort of sick sexual pleasure from committing the moon god's atrocities, given that he can be seen rubbing his hand against something in his pocket in multiple instances. Despite his best efforts in the first game, he ultimately failed in his task. But the fiend has returned, already up to his usual shenanigans. You know, you have one of those familiar faces. I feel like we've met before. Perhaps in a past life? Maybe. Things sure have changed since then, haven't they? We live in peculiar times. The world has gone through true darkness. Say, old sport, what do you think follows such intense darkness? It has to be light, more peaceful times. Oh yes, I remember. You were the eternal optimist. That is the reason I loved you. From personal experience,
I'd say a true darkness is followed by chaos. In any case, I understand you've got your hands full with the festival already, so I'll get straight to the point. Not am I only a wandering gentleman, but I am also a head salesman of sorts, with deep, very deep pockets. What is a head salesman, you ask? Well, it's exactly what it sounds. I'm willing to part from my valuable collection if the price is right. And the price is severed heads of those participating in the festival. Macabre, I know, but you get used to it. God knows I did. It would seem the Pocketcat's purpose this time around is to facilitate the Moon God's festival, incentivizing us to kill our comrades, but we will not do business with this monster. It truly was a pleasure to meet you once again, but I fear I must go now. The Moon Tower, it's to the east of here, just beyond the church's hidden passage. Let us meet again there. The Pocketcat's piercing yellow eyes fixate on Dan. Perhaps I'll even have a special deal for you. But until that time, old sport, do take care. We now roughly know where the moon tower that Prehevil stands on is, as well as how to reach it. The question is whether we should. Continuing our exploration of Prehevil, we notice a yellow-robed figure walking in the distance. He glances briefly at us before strolling away. It would seem the Kaiser has arrived. Our path in the city is eventually blocked by the yellow mage Osar. He seems to be very cautious of the other contestants, unsure about their intentions regarding the festival. As a precaution, he warns us to keep our distance. If we try and approach him, he will cast the spell Hurting and dismember our limbs. With Osar in our way, we cannot proceed any further into the city. Rather than provoking the yellow mage, we decide to take shelter in a nearby bookstore until he leaves. Prehevil once again encourages us to engage in Termina's festivities. The Harlequin also urges us to seek out the Moon Tower, but that seems redundant, given the fact that it will only open its gates once there's only one contestant remaining. It's likely a mischievous ploy or trap to further their agendas. But without any other leads at the moment, we might as well investigate. From the Pocketcat, we know that to reach the tower, we must pass through the church's hidden entrance. So let us begin by going there. When we wake up from our nap, we find Marina reading a book downstairs. It seems she was also planning to go to the church, but has stopped at the bookstore on her way there. Despite our common destination, the occultist is not keen on joining us at the moment. She appears to be hesitant to meet with her father, who will without a doubt be at the church. Exiting the bookstore, we once again see August, this time climbing up a tall building. It's almost as if he's looking for something, or someone. Osar has thankfully left his meditation spot, allowing us to continue on. Outside the church, we witness a massive bipedal creature impaling a bobby. Whatever that thing was, it doesn't look to be a result of moon scorching. Before we can enter the church of Alll-mer, Marina comes running after us. She has had a change of heart and decides to join us after all. Inside the church, we find the black-haired girl from the train talking to a dark priest named Domek, who Marina recognizes as her father. The black-haired girl is extremely timid and shy with her words, which seems to aggravate Marina's short-tempered father. The girl says that she came here for Marina's sake, to free her from the shackles of her father. Father Domek is initially dismissive and unbothered by the girl's sentiments until she mentions that Marina is in the city. This immediately grabs his attention and causes the dark priest great concern. He tries to gather more information out of the girl, but she's no longer responsive to his words. The girl appears to be having a monologue with herself, trying to rationalize the sin she is about to commit.
Marina's father eventually loses his temper and tries to beat the information out of her, but this misdeed turns out to be his last. The girl reveals a knife she had been concealing and stabs Father Domek in his abdomen multiple times. Marina's father collapses to the ground, and the black-haired girl runs off. On the brink of death, Domek lays eyes on his daughter one last time. Despite misgendering her in public, he now addresses her properly. He scolds Marina for coming back to this horrid city, revealing that he wanted her to be free from this place all along. Marina just stands there in silence as her father passes away, murdered in cold blood. Despite how he may have treated her in the past, it seems the man did truly care for his daughter. As much as she tries to hide it, there is sorrow in Marina's eyes. Shortly after his death, Father Domek's body weakly melts into the ground and disappears. Chasing after the black-haired girl, we find that she has run into the church's basement and locked the gate behind her. We will have to find another way to enter. At the center of the church are pedestals with places for 3 objects. From a craftsman's note, we learn that those pedestals serve as key holders for 3 different effigies, and that once all the effigies are placed, a hidden passage will open. This must be what the Pocketcat was referring to. The effigies have been scattered across Prehevil. One is in the church, one is in the orphanage, and the last is in the craftsman's apartment. Since we are already at the church, we might as well get the effigy. It's most likely in the basement along with that deranged girl. Climbing atop the wooden beams on the church's ceiling, we find massive muscular pillarmen wandering aimlessly. Their arms have been tightly bound behind their back. The skin off their heads is flayed over their eyes, and their genitalia seems to be missing. According to the creator of the game, their sole purpose is to sing the gospel to the members of the church, which is why most of their other bodily functions have been rendered useless. After fighting our way through the pillarmen, we find a large chandelier hanging from the beams. If we manage to cut the thick chain holding it, the chandelier may be able to create an opening to the basement. Fortunately for us, the craftsman left behind a hidden bolt cutter buried beneath the flooring. Jumping into the crater formed by the chandelier, we enter the basement. The air stinks of gore. There are several cells with prisoners inside. This, along with the multiple ritual circles and pools of blood, suggests the church was conducting some sick experiments off the books. Roaming the basement are strange creatures referred to as Crimson Fathers. They are unlike anything we have seen before. Their cosmic appearance suggests that they are not from this world. They communicate with us telepathically, showing us visions of an unknown god, one we have never seen before. Following a trail of heavily mutilated corpses, we find a statue of a winged being, holding the martyr effigy. 1 down, 2 more to go. Our last order of business in the church is to confront the black-haired girl. We notice that someone has drawn the sigil of Re onto a ritual circle. Stepping on the circle, we once again enter the moon god's realm, and it is here we find the psychopath.
Marina, you came. I knew you'd come for me.
Sorry, but I don't know you.
What do you mean? Can't you see this world? It's a world created just for us. We can finally be one.
I still don't know you, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
Marina, it's me. It's not a coincidence that we both ended up in Prehevil.
I came to Prehevil because of my parents. I got a letter from my father. Of course you knew that somehow, right? You killed my father. I've never seen you in my life, but somehow you seem to know me.
Why are you being this difficult all of a sudden? It's me, Samari. We've met each other countless times at the Vatican City. You know me, and I know you. Think about all those gazes we've shared. I know you hate your father. I know you wanted him dead. That's why I killed him. I know, cut the crap. You don't know a thing about me or my father. I just didn't want him to taint our new world. This is him. He has become one with the only thing he ever loved, the church. He never cared for you. Enough. Just what the hell is wrong with you? You're no different to those things crawling outside. If you're so fond of this world, you can stay here for the rest of your short little life. But, what are you saying? I don't get this.
Marina, can't you see me absolutely radiating? What more can you ask? Marina!
You've lost your mind.
You're just one of them. That's what they all say. All but Marina. Marina, tell them.
I have nothing to say to you.
Marina.
Samari's sick one-sided obsession with Marina drove her to follow the occultist to Prehevil. The mentally ill girl thought she would do Marina a favor by killing her father. However, this had the exact opposite effect she desired. Learning the love between her and Marina was not mutual pushed her over the edge, resulting in Samari's Moonscorch transformation into dysmorphia. We have now learned that an unstable mental state can make one more vulnerable to Ra's disfiguring influence. We are also once again reminded of the devastating power of a moon-scorched foe. Dysmorphia puts up a seriously tough fight, but using everything at our disposal and with a bit of luck, we emerge victorious. Behind her body is a pillar of flesh, which Samari told us is where the remains of Marina's father slithered off to after he died. Marina informs us that this is an old dark priest ritual, where the person binds themselves to an area, building, or item in order to prolong their existence. She is both sickened and saddened by her father's actions, but we do not have time to dwell on the matter. The longer the other contestants are left alone in this decrepit city, the more likely they are to moonscorch. We need to find them before then. On our way out the church, we pass by a confessional. Feeling slightly guilty after taking the lives of two of our fellow contestants, albeit in an altered state, we decide to enter. It looks like someone is sitting on the other side, but we are not entirely sure. In any case, we begin confessing our sins, and surely enough, someone responds. The two Moonscorch contestants aside, over the past day we have killed dozens of morph citizens, even if it was in self-defense. Despite this fact, we don't feel particularly remorseful. We simply did what we had to do, and those in our way paid the price. The person on the other side asks if we will continue on this path of violence, and we answer truthfully. We will kill again if we have to, and given our circumstances, we will definitely have to. Whether we make it out the festival alive or not, our hands will be stained with blood, that much is certain. Exiting the confessional, we feel a weight lift off our shoulder. It was good that we had a chance to process our thoughts. Before we can leave, the person who was listening to our confession exits the booth. And what do you know? It's our good pal, Osar. He seems to have been highly amused by our inner thoughts. After having a good laugh at our expense, the yellow mage scurries off into the night. He got us good. Exiting the church, we hear gunshots in the distance. Following the sounds, we witness a Bremen soldier mowing down several Moonscorch villages with his rifle. Even with 3 party members, the Kaiser's trooper still gives us trouble. It's no surprise why they won the war if this is what their army consisted of. Examining the soldier's corpse, it seems somewhat unnatural. All the proportions are off slightly, but it doesn't appear to be the result of Ra's curse. Dan theorizes that it could be a product of some unholy experiment, possibly a marriage of flesh.
A marriage of flesh is an archaic ritual performed by worshippers of Sylvian. It combines both the bodies and souls of the participants into one, creating an entirely new being, which is often stronger than its parts. The Kaiser would definitely be aware of the ritual from his time in the dungeons of fear and hunger, and given his desire to accomplish his goals by any means necessary, we wouldn't put it past him. On our way to the orphanage, we find Levi in a confrontation with the mobster Caligura. The wicked man has decided to take part in Termina's festivities, setting his sights on Levi, someone who clearly wants no part of this. If it's a fight he wants, then we'll give it to him. After disarming the mafia boss, we try and de-escalate the situation. However, he has no intention of stopping. He leaves us with no choice. Before we have a chance to talk to Levi, he understandably runs away. Another contestant's blood on our hands. Despite our best efforts, we are doing exactly what Prehevil wants. In the west side of the city, we enter what is, in my opinion, the most disturbing area in the game. The orphanage. St. Domecq's orphanage was funded by Marina's father, although his actual involvement in the establishment remains unspecified. The orphanage serves as both a school and home for the orphaned youth of Prehevil. However, its true purpose is far more nefarious. If you remember from his backstory, this is the orphanage Levi grew up in, which is likely why he returned here.
Hold it right there. Why do you keep following me?
Are you okay?
You're here because of the festival, aren't you? You killed that man on the street. Does the voice still echo in your head? Does it still insist it's the only way? Or does it ease once you obey?
It seems Levi has been hearing voices encouraging him to partake in the festival, a symptom also experienced by the moon-scorched citizens. We need to calm him down before it's too late.
I don't hear any voices. It was just a whisper at first. It gets stronger. Just wait. Let's just get this over with.
What?
You're here to kill me, right? My head hurts. I don't understand any of this. Just kill me.
I'm not here to hurt you.
I don't know what to do.
Why don't you join us?
Okay, if it's not too much trouble. I'm Levi, by the way.
Out of all the contestants, Levi seems to be in the worst state mentally. All the abuse he experienced as a child, coupled with the trauma he went through on the battlefield, has left him vulnerable. Ra seems to be taking advantage of this fact. Exploring the orphanage, we make all sorts of horrific discoveries. Floors littered with blood, sinks filled with teeth, worn-out bone saws, shackles with chains. This dreadful place looks more like a torture house than an orphanage. Within a confined room in the basement, we find the skeleton of a child, imprisoned and left to rot away. Using a Ouija board, we can communicate with the child's spirit. It tells us that this was a punishment for doing something bad. But what misdeed could ever warrant condemning a child to death? The tragedy continues as we find out what happened to the children who survived the cruelty of the orphanage. Deformed and twisted, scorched by the moon god. We need to find the effigy and leave this place as soon as possible. The party eventually makes their way to the headmaster's office. Levi begins panting and sweating out of instinctive fear. The dark priest widens his arms, almost as if he is trying to embrace us. This is the man who oversaw all the horrors committed at the orphanage. His name is Donovan Hugo. He wears an unsettling blank expression on his face that remains unchanged even as we attack him. Terrible rumors have spread about this man. claiming that he is a vampire that prolonged his life through the blood of infants. In my playthrough of both the Fear and Hunger games, I have never felt more disturbed by a single line of text. Father Hugo wants to take off his clothes. What kind of sick fiend decides he wants to get naked after having his arm chopped off? Anyway, the headmaster reveals his unusually muscular physique, his facial expression still the exact same. It's unnerving to say the least, but still much better than his original design, which I presume was changed for crossing a line too dark even for Fear and Hunger. The old battle sprite shows a moon-scorched orphan's face fused into Father Hugo's torso, implying an unspeakable deed committed in the name of Sylvian. After severing every limb off the dark priest's body, we finally put an end to his miserable existence. With Hugo out the way, we can allocate our full attention to finding the effigy. In an old shed within the schoolyard, we find a pre-made roar circle that transports us to what looks like a set piece from the Great War. This is obviously very traumatic for Levi, given his time on the front lines. Luckily, the party is able to calm him down. Following the path laid out by the trenches, we find the hunger effigy. Only one remains now. The final effigy is located within the White Mold apartments. As the name suggests, the entire complex is coated in the strange mold-like substance. Even more ominous is the fact that the entrance gets locked as soon as we enter. In one of the rooms, we find a TV playing a peculiar video of Karen. She is reporting about an event that happened in the city. But we know that Karen is from the nation of Bremen and that this is her first time in Prehevil, so we're not exactly sure how this was recorded. In any case, we learn that this apartment complex was the scene of 4 gruesome murders and that the killer was a resident of the place. In the basement of the complex, we find a bloodied washing machine, still tumbling despite the building's lack of electricity. We can hear an object rolling inside, possibly the effigy. The washing machine, however, is locked by a 6-digit code, and it is too strong for us to break open. Perhaps we can find the answer in one of the apartments. After searching each and every apartment that was accessible to us, we notice a creak in the floorboards beneath us. We might be able to break through with enough force. Pushing a heavy statue over the weakened area causes the flooring to cave in. We jump down into an apartment that was locked from the other side. In here, we find a strange sigil carved onto the floor, along with the diary of a madman. It belongs to the psycho who committed the 4 murders at the complex. The book details the order in which he killed his victims. First was the lunatic who raved about the moon and stars in apartment 9. Second was the foolish braggart who just moved into apartment 13. Third was the man obsessed with puppets in apartment 11. And last was the musician who played throughout the night in apartment 6. Putting the apartment numbers of the victims together, we find the code to the washing machine. Instead of the effigy, we find a long blood-filled tunnel. Crawling into it, we once again enter the moon god's dimension. There are multiple decapitated bodies strapped to chairs. A strange purple liquid is being extracted from them. We also see the same sigil from the killer's apartment, and next to it is the final effigy, the fellatio effigy. Exiting the washing machine, the entrance mysteriously unlocks itself, allowing us to leave. We now have all 3 effigies required to access the hidden entrance in the church and head to the moon tower. But we would be fools to do so. This is exactly what Rur and his servants want. Before proceeding any further, we need to find another way to end the festival, one that does not involve bloodshed. We find an abandoned club in the city that is relatively safe and well maintained. This will serve as our new base of operations. The party is worn down both physically and mentally. After a long and eventful first day in Prehevil, it is time for some well-deserved rest. In the morning, while the others are still asleep, Dan sets off to find the remaining contestants. We need to work together and formulate a plan if we are going to have any hope of surviving the festival. We find Karen outside a news agency, gathering evidence for her scoop. The woman still foolishly believes that everything going on in Prehevil is because of the Bremen Empire. In any case, we are still able to convince her to join us. Marco and Olivia are the only two people still at the train. After explaining to them the gravity of our situation, they agree that it doesn't make sense to sit around idle any longer. Osar has been severely injured in a battle with August. Neither of them seem like bad people, but given their personalities, it is not difficult to see why a fight ensued. After appealing to his sense of reason and explaining our motives, the Yellow Mage joins our cause. Now that we have assembled all 8 of the recruitable contestants, it's time to strategize. Abella and Karen notice a loose tile on the floor. It hides a ladder to an underground room. Beneath the club lies a secret hideout previously used by the NLU, the resistance organization formed against the Bremen Empire and the Eastern Union. The group was planning some sort of operation in Prehevil. Despite being a member of the resistance, Abella was fairly low in the ranks and did not receive any details about what they were planning. Although we do find some clues that help us piece things together. Firstly, the NLU marked 4 locations onto a map of Prehevil. One of them has been marked in a way that signifies more importance. We have actually already visited one of these locations, the underground tunnel in the Maiden Woods, marked with the number 7. If you recall, there was a strange piece of technology in the tunnel called a telectroscope. We also learned that there were 3 of these machines in total, and that once all are switched on, the logic can be activated. The 3 lighter red crosses most likely indicate the location of the telectroscopes, and the darker cross the location of this logic. But what is the logic exactly? Well, we can learn a bit more from a coded letter in the hideout. The letter is from a person with the initial R, whom we presume to be Rayla, Olivia's sister and the leader of the Bohemia branch of the NLU. We learn that Project Logic has been in development long before the start of the Great War, and that the Kaiser was one of the founding members who kick-started the project. It is implied that the project started off as a joint collaboration between the Bremen and the Eastern Union, with Rayla as the lead engineer. However, a fight broke out over who will retain possession over it. After the war was won by Kaiser, Rayla rushed to Prehevil to secure Logic before Kaiser could. Whether she succeeded in this endeavor or not still remains to be seen. Based on Lagarde's ambition from the first game, whatever this Project Logic is, it must possess the power to obtain his lofty goals and further mankind in a significant way. With this in mind, we can now speculate about the true purpose of the Termina festival. We know from Fear and Hunger 1 that the moon god Rhea is a jealous kind and does not wish to see humanity prosper by any means. This is why he tried so desperately to stop the birth of the god of fear and hunger. With this in mind, the Termina festival may just be an elaborate scheme to disrupt the succession of Project Logic. It can't just be a coincidence that the festival was orchestrated in the exact same city Project Logic was being developed. Our best plan of action would be to facilitate the activation of Logic, thus foiling the moon god's plans. The contestants split up into 2 groups, one led by Dan and the other by Osar. Dan's group will head to Tunnel 1 and Osar's group will head to Tunnel 4. After activating the last 2 telectroscopes, we will reconvene at the hideout. To reach Tunnel 4, Osar and company must traverse the sewers beneath the city. On their way there, the party comes across another vision of Rayla tending to a garden. On the ground, we find one half of a butterfly necklace. The other half is possessed by Olivia, a fitting set of jewelry for twin sisters. It is perhaps also a testament of the yearning the two sisters have to reunite with one another. The sewers have become home to a multitude of moon-scorched villages. From them, we get some very crucial story exposition. We learn that what we are experiencing now is Prehevil's 3rd consecutive Termina festival. The first was for the citizens of Prehevil, which started when the full moon was sighted. The second was for the Bremen soldiers who invaded the city, and the third was for the 14 passengers on the train. Fearing Rur's moonlight, the common folk took shelter in the sewers, while the nobles fled to the museum, although it is very apparent they did not get away scot-free. The current festival is expected to end with the sighting of the next full moon, which as we know is in 2 days. We need to settle things before then. After making it past the sewers, we descend into the Foundation of Decay, a massive underground cavern beneath the city. There isn't much down here, besides a statue of Grogaroth and a gang of humanoid rats. As we make our way to Tunnel 4, we hear something large approaching from the shadows. Its glowing eyes draw closer and closer. We recognize the beast. It's Moonless, the cave wolf we found in the dungeons of Fear and Hunger, only she looks significantly different. Her body has grown exponentially, one of her eyes is missing, and 2 swords are lodged into her back, one of which we recognize, the Miasma, an otherworldly blade possessed by a bloodthirsty sentient spirit. We have no idea what happened to Moonless or how she got to Prehevil, but the massive cave wolf does not seem to be playing around. No amount of rotten meat will save us this time. Knowing how dangerous the Miasma is, we start by dislodging it, along with the other Eastern-looking sword, which we could use as a weapon. Of course, she's not going to sit by idly. Her sharp teeth tears off our skin. Her large paws push us off balance, and her deafening howl nearly bursts our eardrums. Before the fight can proceed any further, August intervenes.
Hold it. I'll take care of her. Easy, girl. Easy. You did good. These ones are not the enemy. They're friends.
Moonless retreats into the shadows.
She is an old family acquaintance. She doesn't mean harm. I hope you're not hurt too badly. Let's see, what do I have? It's not much, but hopefully these will help with the worst bite marks.
August hands us a handful of healing items.
Take care out there, my friend.
The mysterious man dashes off at high speeds before we can even say a word. He said that Moonless was an old family acquaintance, and we know from the first game that there were only a select few people who were acquainted with the cave wolf. We have a pretty good idea where August's ancestry may lie, but let's get back to that later. Entering Tunnel 4, we climb down the shafts of an elevator and activate the 2nd telectroscope. On their way to Tunnel 1, Dan's group passes through the deep woods. Here we find Olivia, only she is running, which we know is not possible given her condition. She says that she got bored just waiting around and came to the forest, but she is supposed to be with Osar. There is also something very off about her speech. Her true colors are revealed once we confront her. a creature able to mimic the appearance and personality of others, a doppelganger. Very little is known about these beings, but we can find them scattered throughout the city of Prehevil. Some of them do a much more convincing job of mimicking the host than others. This is likely related to the amount of information they were able to gather about the person. Most of them are fairly non-hostile and will only attack if provoked, although their purpose and origin remains a mystery for now. Deeper into the woods, we run into August resting by a campfire. He must have come here after saving the other group from Moonless.
Would you mind if I entertained you with a story?
Sure.
There once was a time of great turmoil. The world had been in a state of constant conflict and sickness for as long as people remembered. People blamed all the possible powers above them, the kings and sultans of the time, the so-called new gods, the gods of the old, everyone but themselves. Not that different from the time we live in today. The world was close to a breaking point, and it surely would have crumbled, if not for a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. There was a prophecy of a man that would shepherd mankind out of the darkness. He rose to fame in Central Europa, promising a just world, free from the corruption of the old world order. But the hierarchy of the old world would not be shaken by mere words. The man had to acquire strength that would outmatch the ruling forces of his time. That kind of power is not easy to come by. So he did anything and everything it took to obtain that power. In pursuit of his agenda, he made many villainous moves. One could say he came close to the same evil he promised to crush. But the man assured himself that the ends justify the means. Ultimately, the man did obtain the strength he so yearned. But not everything went according to his plan. In his pursuit, the man inadvertently caused the birth of an ascended god, the god of fear and hunger. People would flock to this new deity in masses, most likely because she was a creation of their own, a manifestation of their own misery. The god of fear and hunger led mankind to greater heights. The prophesied man's efforts were shadowed by the ascended god. But this was not enough to snuff out his flame of ambition. He continued on his path to create a better world. However, his constant failures drove him to madness. His frustrations would slowly show themselves in rising hostility and violence. Without the grand end he envisioned, he would only come to be known for his means. The people dubbed him as the Yellow King of Madness. But this is not the end of his tale. The Yellow King would not let himself die until he fulfilled his prophecy. It is said that he still wanders the earth today in search of the means to make his dream a reality.
From August's story, we can gather quite a bit of information. He is obviously very familiar with the god and his prophecy. This information is not common knowledge in the current era. The only way he would have learned about it was through someone from Lagarde's time. But why would such a story be passed down over multiple generations? It must have a purpose. There seems to be some bitterness and resentment in August's dialogue about the Yellow King, suggesting that he holds some form of grudge. With all this in mind, coupled with the fact that Moonless is an old family friend, leads us to the conclusion that August is a descendant of the Outlander, Ragnvalder. Although August never outright states that he is from Oldegard, he bears the typical features one might expect from an Oldegardian. Just like Ragnvalder, he uses a bow, is incredibly agile, and possesses the tormented soul. If our theory is correct, that means Ragnvalder did indeed escape the dungeons of fear and hunger, passing on his hatred for Lagarde to his descendants. August must have come to Prehevil to exact his ancestors' vengeance for the brutal siege Lagarde launched on their country all those years back. After our long chat with August, we continue on to the tunnel. But before we can get there, a horrific beast charges straight at us. It appears to be a marriage of flesh between a human and a horse, which does not surprise us at all. It's unfortunately not the first time we've seen something like this. After defeating the centaur, we enter Tunnel 1. Rayla's apparition once again shows us the way to the telectroscope. It's a level below us. We need to switch the power on to reach it. Within the tunnel, we make some very disturbing discoveries. There is evidence that someone has been sewing together different body parts to create these bizarre creatures referred to as sew jobs. We had previously encountered the sew jobs throughout the city, and despite their appearance, they are still capable of speech, retaining the sentience of their constituents. Even more disturbing than the sew jobs is a foul abomination that I cannot show on YouTube. A hulking mass of flesh, reminiscent of the human centipede. The victims' bodies have been grotesquely sewn together in the most vile fashion. The poor souls still appear to be alive, just barely. After refueling and switching on the backup generator, we meet the creator of those sewn together monstrosities, Stitches. She's staring intently at Dawn and mumbling something. However, her mouth has been stitched shut, dampening the sound of her words. Stitches summons a living pile of flesh to aid her in battle, but it is of little help. After defeating the wicked woman, Dawn examines her corpse. Aside from her mouth, there are several sewn together wounds all around her body. Her face has been heavily distorted, but despite this fact, Dawn seems to recognize her. No matter how disfigured it may be, Dawn could never mistake the face of his wife. But that's impossible. He verified her tragic demise himself. Dawn feels nauseated at the thought that this thing is the woman he once loved. There's no way he could ever believe that. He must be losing his mind in this damn place. At least, that's what he tells himself. The group switches on the final telectroscope and leave the tunnel, but Dawn's head is clearly elsewhere. He remains silent on the entire journey back to the hideout. His mind is only fixated on one thing, his wife, Elise. But his thoughts are suddenly interrupted by a cold laughter devoid of all life. In Dawn's absent-mindedness, Needles manages to ambush the party. The clown, who has worn a disturbingly wide grin on his face throughout the entire game, looks Dawn dead in the eyes as his expression becomes deadly serious. In a state of anger after discovering the fate of his wife, Dawn provokes the already agitated clown. "You're going to regret the day you quit the circus." Needles grits his teeth and tightens his grip on his syringe. For some reason, he seems to be deeply aggravated by Dawn's presence. "What's the matter? Did I hit a nerve?" Needles begins viciously whooping and injecting the party. However, alongside our comrades, we have grown strong. Even a formidable enemy such as Needles can no longer have his way with us. But the clown seems to have noticed this and targets the weakest among the group, Levi. We cut off his arm in an attempt to disarm him from his precious syringe, but Needles had one more deadly trick up his sleeve. He pulls out a gun from his pocket and shoots several bullets into Levi's chest. As Levi lays lifeless on the floor, the party begins to panic. Dawn curses himself for being so careless, but he refuses to lose anyone else close to him. Magna Medicinal. Magna Medicinal is a ritual performed in the name of Vitruvia, used to resurrect a recently deceased person in exchange for one of your limbs. By severing his own arm, Dawn was successfully able to revive Levi. Together, they finally put an end to Needles the Clown. After making sure Levi is okay, Dan inspects Needles' corpse. Despite being dead, his expression is still frozen on that same sadistic smile. But beneath all the blood and makeup, his face looks familiar to Dan. It's his father-in-law, Einar von Dutch. He wouldn't have even considered the possibility if he didn't just see the walking corpse of his wife. All of this is too much for Dan to process. He can't make any sense of it. The party advise him to just return to the hideout for now, which he reluctantly complies with. When Osar and his group return to the hideout, they find everyone there except Dan. He apparently went out for some air and said he will be back in the morning. After successful missions from both parties, the contestants decide to rest for the night and reconvene in the morning when Dan returns. After spending some time in contemplation, Dan returns to Needle's body. He awkwardly lights a cigarette with his only remaining arm. He still has not forgiven his father-in-law for what he did to Elise, nor will he ever. Dan begins kicking and beating the corpse of Needles, but this is not enough. He saws off his head and rips out his heart. As Dan walks away from the mutilated corpse of his father-in-law, he comes to the realization that he came to the city in search of answers, but has only been left with more questions. And even if he does get the answers he's looking for, what good would that do? It's not going to bring back his wife. What's the point of any of this? The Termina Festival, the Logic Project, it's all meaningless. You've lost the one you've loved the most. Not only that, but you let her suffer as that thing before killing her with your own hands. There's nothing left for someone like you. You should just give up and leave the rest to me. Once again, you find yourself in a familiar pit of despair. You've tried to claw yourself up from this miserable hole time and time again. It's time to accept the inevitable. Maybe this place was your home all along. Maybe you were meant to fall here all those times. Because let's face it, you never felt quite right among those smiling crowds, did you? You always felt like an outsider, like a bystander, spectating what life looked like in the sun. Like using a mask, you hid in the darkness. But that didn't fool anyone. They all saw right through you. They knew your true alignment and your past. You realize it now, don't you? There was never a mask. It was always you. Now, go on, old sport. It's your time to bask in the sun. It's the morning of day 3 of the festival. Dan has not returned. Levi desperately wants to search for him. However, some of the other contestants are apprehensive to the idea. The looming deadline of the festival aside, Osar, Olivia, Karen, and Abella have all come to the city for very specific reasons. Osar is here under the orders of Nasra to find and kill the Kaiser. Olivia is desperately searching for her twin sister. Karen is trying to uncover the intention behind the Bremen's occupation of Bohemia. Annabella wants to find out more about the Eastern Union's secret technology that the NLU was investigating. All 4 of these objectives are undoubtedly tied to Project Logic. It makes the most sense to split the contestants into 2 groups. Osar, Olivia, Karen, and Annabella will make their way towards Project Logic, while the rest of the group led by Levi look for Dan. Osar's group head to the last marked location on the map, where we are fairly certain the logic is being kept. To get there, we will have to make use of the church's secret passage. Luckily, Dan left behind the effigies he collected before departing. Placing the 3 effigies on their respective pedestals, the hidden entrance opens. The underground passage leads us to the altar of the One God, where we are attacked by Rancid the Sergal, a large bipedal creature wielding 2 Sergal spears. We had seen it previously outside the church. The fight doesn't last long as the Sergal backs off once he realizes we are not his target. He seems to have a deep hatred of humans, blaming us for everything that went wrong in Prehevil. Parasites leeching off the moon, doppelgangers replacing missing folk, old deities rising from their graves, and tears between space and time. Perhaps there's some truth to what the creature says. On our way to our destination, we pass by the entrance to the moon tower. Just being near the structure causes us great distress, but this feeling is overcome by a more imminent sense of danger. A figure in yellow crosses our path. An intense otherworldly aura emanates from him. Our bodies are petrified in fear. We dare not move an inch until he passes.
Kaiser!
Do you even know why I point this gun at you?
Pavel Yuldin, you're one of my officials. You were recruited from Varinia during the First Great War. That must mean I'm responsible for demolishing your village, along with your loved ones. I sincerely hope this is not an act of vengeance. That would mean you've wasted your entire life in spite, waiting for an opportunity like this.
It's not wasted if I get my revenge. Hell, I'd do this even if it just meant that no one else has to go through what I did. And don't give me any of that it's for the greater good rubbish. You step on people's lives with no remorse, all to pursue your own agendas.
I do not do anything for the greater good. The greater scheme of things is a trap humanity has fallen for far too many times. What I've done is a necessary step for mankind.
Pav shoots a bullet into the back of Kaiser's skull. I said I don't want to hear that nonsense.
That's too bad.
With a single motion of his blade, the Kaiser managed to deal a near-fatal blow to Pav. The Bremen lieutenant will probably not make it if we don't tend to his wounds. After slowing the bleeding, we take him back to the train. He seems to be in a more stable condition now. Pav informs us that whatever the Kaiser is after is within the White Bunker. However, the path leading to it was destroyed in the war, so we will have to find another way around. The marked location on our map is directly over a museum, so that might be our best bet. Before leaving Pav on the train, Osar reassures him that he will bring down Kaiser in his place. However, the lieutenant doesn't seem convinced. Picking up where we left off, we examine the base of the moon tower. The stone door is sealed shut, just like Perkele said. Simply standing next to the tower is enough to make our blood rush and our hair stand up. We feel both terrified and tempted to touch the ancient doorway, but this is the trickster moon god we are dealing with. There's no telling what would happen if we fall for one of his traps. Before we get to the museum, Karen notices August in the distance.
You see that man over there? I've been keeping my eyes on him ever since we got here. There is something very suspicious about him. I'm convinced he knows more than he's letting on.
As we approach August, he immediately dashes off, and Karen chases after him. She now holds him at gunpoint.
Not one step, or I'll shoot. And you know perfectly well I'm not bluffing.
Didn't we already go through this, miss? I'm not the one you're after.
Cut the crap. I found your journal.
Ah, I see. I can understand how that might raise suspicions.
It did more than raise suspicions. You've been spying on us ever since we got here. Detailed analysis on everyone's psyche. How do you explain that? It's the last day of this godforsaken event. I don't have time for this. Start talking. You know what's going on here, don't you?
I really don't appreciate being interrogated at gunpoint. Lower the pistol and we can talk this through.
Like hell I will. Despite us as the player knowing August's intentions in Prehevil, the other contestants do not. But even in spite of that, Karen is not at all being rational. August has done nothing to make us consider him an enemy. In fact, he has helped us on multiple occasions. We understand that tensions are high and that there are still a lot of unknowns, but there is no need to engage in such foolishness when we are so close to the end. Our response in this situation is key, as choosing the wrong one may result in unwanted outcomes. Karen is very much on edge. Anything we say could trigger her. Let us leave our trust in August to defuse the situation. August disarms Karen with an arrow.
I am sorry for this, child, but like you said, it is the third and final day. We are all running out of time. You there, take care of her wounds.
Karen wants us to chase after August, but there's no way we can leave her like this. Besides, he's probably long gone by now. After patching her up and calming her down, Karen agrees to continue on with our mission. Entering the museum, we are greeted by a moon-scorched butler by the name of Jeeves. He informs us that the museum is being used as a venue for a masquerade in celebration of the Termina festival. However, not everything is as it seems. Almost all the partygoers are in this trance-like state. They move their lips, but no words come out. It's like they've been frozen in this idle state. But the mysteries do not end there. The entire museum seems to have been placed in an endless loop, suggesting some form of meddling with space and time. The museum is also home to many ancient artifacts, some of which you may recognize. The old knight's armor, the wolf and bunny masks, an idol of the god of fear and hunger, and statues of Betel and Nasra, the previous new gods of enlightenment. After exploring the museum, we find a strange door that is firmly shut, although it possesses no visible keyhole or locking mechanism. Directly above the door is a peculiar clock, with inputs for the hour, minute, and month. The correct values can be found by talking to the guests mentioned by the butler. The hour lies between 1 and 2. The minute is 25 until the next hour, and the month is sulfur. The door opens, leading us to a massive excavation site within the ballroom. It seems the Bremen have gotten here before us. Climbing down the hole, we find a massive vault door standing before us. With all 3 telectroscopes activated, we are able to open the door and enter the white bunker. After searching for Dan all over Prehevil to no avail, Levi and his group decide to meet up with the others at the museum to see if they found anything. It is here that they find the Pocketcat, only there's something different about him. While his mask and jacket remain the same, the rest of his clothes, they're Dan's.
Well, hello there, stranger. Have we met before? There is something very familiar about you.
Dan, it's you, right?
Dan? I'm afraid you've mistaken me for someone else, old sport.
Stop playing around, Dan. We've been looking for you everywhere. The others have already gone ahead. Come on, let's...
Like I said, old sport, you've clearly mistaken me for someone else. My name is not Dan. I am the Pocketcat. Run along now, Levi.
I'm not going anywhere without you.
Has it really come to this? We've got ourselves quite a pickle here. You see, my master has made it very, very clear that I shall not let my dirty little paws affect the course of events during the festival. But I cannot just stand here idle, now can I, old sport? So I came up with the perfect solution. If you tell me what to do, I'm just following your wishes, right? Right? So tell me, Levi, which limb would you like me to remove? I don't want you to do anything. Oh, what poppycock. Sure you do. Come now, don't be shy. Levi is forced into choosing what limb the Pocketcat will rip off his body. He needs both arms to operate his rifle, and his head is out the question. The only option left is to sacrifice a leg, but this is the servant of the trickster moon god. We should have known better. Take my leg. A leg it is. The Pocketcat rips off Marina's left leg. It is bleeding heavily. I never said whose leg I would take, now did I? As the villain maniacally laughs in our face, Levi and the party come to the painful realization that the person they once knew is gone, and all that remains is the Pocketcat. We have to stop him. We can't let him desecrate Dan's body any longer, but this will not be an easy task. Let's have a little one-to-one, shall we? The Pocketcat grabs Levi by his neck and pulls him close. He begins whispering something into his ear. We have no idea what he is saying, but whatever it is enough to leave Levi shocked and paralyzed. The monster continues ripping off the party's limbs. He revels in our suffering, rubbing his hand in his pocket with a sick grin on his face. Despite all this, he doesn't seem to care about winning the battle, almost as if the outcome makes no difference to him. If it were not for the limitations set upon him by Rare, we are not sure if we could have defeated him. The party stands in silence as the Pocketcat falls. Their bodies are in tatters, but they have lost something far more important than their limbs. Levi seems to be taking it the worst. The man who showed him such kindness, the man who helped him get back on his feet, now lays lifeless before him. The Pocketcat is a truly frightening entity. His tale dates back to ancient times. Though his appearance may vary slightly with each iteration, his wicked personality always remains the same. It is very likely that the Pocketcat is an immaterial being that requires a host to manifest himself in the world. The host's consciousness seems to be completely lost in the process, or at the very least repressed to a point where it will not influence the Pocketcat's actions. The criteria for a suitable host remains unclear, but in the case of Dan, he was in a weak state mentally and viewed himself as an outcast that needed to put on a mask to fit in with society. If this theory is correct, then it means that as much as we try, we can never truly kill the Pocketcat, for he is an evil that transcends the limits of a mortal body. Back at the White Bunker, Osa and his party find that the place has become overrun by Bremen soldiers. The fact that so many of the elite forces are guarding the bunker must indicate that we are in the right place. After fighting our way through the Kaiser's forces, we reach the deepest part of the bunker. A female figure clad in tight black leather signals us to follow her. Doing so, we are attacked by a gigantic grotesque monster called the Platoon. It looks to be compiled of dozens of different bodies melded together in sickening fashion. It is likely the result of multiple marriages of flesh. This is backed up by the fact that we can find a marriage between a human and a crow in the second level of the bunker. The platoon is barely sentient and relies on the orders of its commander to function. Taking out the woman leaves the abomination perplexed, and aside from its unblockable coin flip attack, the thing is not much of a threat. Progressing past the corpse of the platoon, we are once again transported to the Hall of the Gods. We hear whisperings about how the death of innocence is approaching, how soon we will witness the birth of the true God, and how humanity will shed its skin and reach its true potential.
We arrive in a room almost completely devoid of light. It's a mystery how any of this is connected to the bunker. The Kaiser awaits us.
He is the reason we are here, my pupil.
You are late, you know, if you've come to witness the birth of the new era, the birth of a new god. The logic, the machine god, is online. That head you're carrying, is that what remains of Nasra?
About damn time you noticed me.
What a surprising reunion, a fitting one nonetheless.
You self-indulging maggot. I'll show you what fits and where.
Foul-mouthed as always.
What is this machine god you're talking about?
Since the dawn of man, we have strived for a power that would rival the very gods we worship. Many kings and sultans have pursued that strength to no end. Even I fell for that trap at one point. It is but a never-ending cycle that only feeds itself and leads to nowhere. Instead of chasing that power, we need to birth something new. The time has finally come. A true unity of mankind is before us. A true God, born from humanity, not from the old world.
Are you referring to yourself?
At one point, I did think I would be the one to lead us to the promised land, the one true God worshipped in the coming age. But alas, the world is too capricious and chaotic. It was never for me to rule. My only goal now is the betterment of mankind. My purpose in the greater scheme of things was to arrange all the necessary pieces in place and set things in motion. I'm at peace with my role. The true God I speak of is not myself. Fate hampered my plans in the form of a young woman, a person completely clueless about the power struggles of the old world. She became the symbol of our evolution by pure coincidence.
Rayla.
I have to hand it to you. It's a clever ploy. You found a way to create a universal concept shared by all of mankind. If I didn't detest every fiber of your being, I might have even waited to see where all this leads. But I can't have a rectal extension like you leading us.
I wasn't expecting any less from you. So come at me then. Kaiser, we finally meet. You recognize these arrows, I presume? That's good. Then you understand this has been a long time coming.
Kaiser deals August a lethal blow before turning his attention to us.
I am sorry that you will have to suffer in your master's stead, but we have each chosen our paths and company. The time for words is over.
The Kaiser is a formidable opponent. His centuries of battle experience coupled with his godly powers make for a deadly combination. Luckily, the special arrows August fired into his head has weakened him, draining some of his otherworldly powers. Using our most fierce battle tactics, along with the aid of Nasra, we are able to drive Kaiser into a corner. However, before we can finish him off, he manages to escape using a blood ritual. Nasra curses us for being so foolish and allowing this to happen, but does not provide any further details on what occurred. Although, the death animation for Kaiser is the exact same as Father Domek, which could be coincidence, but it could also mean that Kaiser binded himself to something to escape death. In any case, we are fairly certain that this is not the last we will see of him. We are unable to inspect August's body to check if he's still alive. However, he doesn't seem to be moving. Before we proceed any further, let's pause and have a discussion about Kaiser, or rather, Lagarde, and piece together what happened to him between the events of the first game and now. During the fight with Lagarde, if we use the spell Rot, which rots the victim from the inside out, his appearance changes significantly, losing both his skin and hair. Now, while other enemies also have a change in appearance as a result of the spell, none are to this extent. Lagarde's rotted form bears a striking resemblance to how he appeared in Darce's S ending in Fear and Hunger 1. For those not familiar, in the first game, one of the endings involves Lagarde's subordinate, Darce, using the spell Rebirth of the Beloved on his corpse, resurrecting him into a bloodthirsty ghoul that believes himself to be the true god of fear and hunger. Now, the majority of the fanbase have taken this ending as canon, based on the resemblance between the rotted form and the ghoul form. But I don't think it is as simple as many would have you believe. If we examine the text from Darce's S ending, it states that after his resurrection, mentally Lagarde was someone else. He had turned into a beast, craving to unleash the terror and suffering he experienced to the outside world. Now, if you've been paying attention to the video at all, you would have noticed that this is completely contradictory to Lagarde's character and motivations in Termina. Now, some may argue that his personality could have changed over time, which I personally find hard to believe, but we can also find contradictory evidence against this. From August's story, we learned that even after obtaining the power he desired, Lagarde continued on his path to fulfill his prophecy. There is no evidence at any point in time where he was solely focused on death and destruction, which should have been the case if he truly became this bloodthirsty ghoul. Furthermore, Lagarde is never referred to as his title in Darce's S ending, which is the true god of fear and hunger. He has only ever been referred to as the Yellow King from ending C. Lagarde's appearance in Termina is also very similar to his new god form. He even uses the same asterisks in both boss fights. If you are still not convinced that Lagarde ascended as the Yellow King, Kaiser will actually directly reference a conversation he had with Nasra at the Throne of Ascension. Of course, it's very apparent that things do not go as well for Lagarde as was implied with ending C2. Nevertheless, his personality and ambitions in this ending are much more in line with what we are presented in Termina. So if his name, personality, and appearance are all corresponsive to ending C2, how do we account for his rot form? Well, I can't give you a definitive answer, but I can propose some theories. The simplest one is that it is just a reference or callback, but no one is going to accept that. I've seen some theories saying that what we fought in Termina was just a disguised blood golem, but there's not really any evidence for that. A more plausible theory is that after sitting on the Throne of Ascension, Lagarde lost his skin in the void, just like many of the other creatures we find there, but I'm still not entirely convinced. The theory with the most merit is that after being resurrected as a ghoul, Lagarde sat on the Throne of Ascension, becoming a new god. However, there is still some problems with this theory. After being revived, Lagarde already believes himself to be a god. So why would he sit on the Throne of Ascension if he already is a god? Secondly, this still doesn't account for the major personality shift. I find it very hard to believe that a bloodthirsty monster dead set on destruction could have such a major shift in personality, and even if it was possible, it would take a significant amount of time. Meaning there should have been records about the destruction he caused while still in that transition, but there isn't. Lagarde's personality and goals have been fairly consistent throughout the two games. So what I'm saying in essence is that we don't know for sure what happened, and probably will not know until the next game or Miro himself responds. If you have any theories or thoughts of your own regarding Lagarde's fate, please let me know in the comments. With that long rant out the way, let us push on. Entering the room Kaiser was defending, we find the white womb of logic. a massive monolith towers over us. The birth of the machine god is nigh. It won't let anyone close until the process is complete. Fighting logic gives us flashbacks to the god of fear and hunger. It feels meaningless and redundant. The being is in a completely different league than mere mortals. All we can do is try and survive until its activation is complete. The machine god's appearance shifts to something more human-like. With her left hand she creates, and with her right she destroys. The party's stamina is running low. They are on the brink of collapse after 3 back-to-back battles. We are not sure how much longer we can withstand Logic's attacks. Suddenly, the iron casket of the machine god opens, revealing her true form, Olivia's sister, Rayla. She has become one with the machine. Together they are Logic, the conscience of consensus, an avatar for the stream of thought. She calls out to Olivia, asking her to join her in the promised land, where they will be together forever. Olivia, desperately wanting to reunite with her sister, agrees without hesitation. Her consciousness is absorbed into the artificial green hue, becoming a part of the collective hive mind. So what exactly is Logic? Project Logic was founded by Lagarde in an attempt to create a true god that would free humanity from the shackles of the old gods. It separates itself from the ascended gods with the fact that it is purely a creation of humanity. The machine god was not birthed from borrowed powers. It was the product of multiple cycles of humanity's perseverance. Logic is comprised of 2 parts, the engine and the subject. The subject is kept in a constant state of lucid dreaming, allowing for utilization of both the conscious and unconscious mind. In this lucid state, the engine converts the electrical signals in the subject's brain into ones and zeros, effectively blurring the line between human and machine. The telectroscopes connected to Logic provides it with any and all the information it requires. This information is extracted from everyone connected to the system. Together they form a shared consciousness within the artificial green hue of Logic. It remains unclear what impact the machine god will have on humanity, or whether it will live up to Lagarde's hefty expectations. But at the very least, the subject Rayla seems to have good intentions and also retains semblance of her former self. Throughout the festival, she constantly guided us with her apparitions. In fact, she nearly prevented the entire events of Termina in the intro sequence, where she led the 14 contestants to the Hall of the Gods, just 1 room away from the white womb of Logic. The birth of the machine god causes the festival of Termina to end, confirming our suspicions that R's intention with the festival was to prevent the ascension of Logic. With the moon god's plan foiled, the remaining contestants return to the train and leave Prehevil. August's fate remains uncertain, as we cannot inspect his body in the Void Room. It's possible that he survives given that Pav withstood a similar attack from Kaiser, but in either case he does not make it back to the train. At the very least, 7 managed to survive the festival. From their character endings, we can imagine what their lives looked like after leaving Prehevil. Levi was never the same after leaving the city. He ended up drifting from one place to another in an attempt to escape his dreadful past. But the horrific sights he witnessed would always haunt him in the back of his mind. Marco reunited with his sister in Rondon, where he would open up a boxing gym, training people how to defend themselves against the common thug, as well as things far more sinister. Marina moved to the country of Valand to move on with her life and leave her past behind. However, she looks to have been followed by a doppelganger of Samari. Abella would pursue studies in space technology in the hopes of one day traveling to the moon. Osar eventually grew tired of his master's pestering and ended up throwing Nastra's head into a lake. Afterwards, he would return to his homeland to pass on his teachings. Karen continued with her job as a reporter, determined to expose the dark secrets she uncovered in Prehevil. Pav ended up leaving the Bremen Empire for good. although his mind still lingered on Kaiser, desperately waiting for another shot at revenge. And with that, the story of Termina comes to an end. Or does it? Let's say, for example, that you were a murderous psychopath. You heeded the words of Prehevil and killed every single other contestant. Ascending the tower, Prehevil greets you warmly, hailing you as the champion of Termina. However, there is no reward waiting for you, for the moon god Rhea has long departed from our world, along with the other old gods. The festival was simply orchestrated by the traces the moon god left behind, a product of his intense jealousy of humans. Prehevil then reveals that his true master is not the moon god, and that he only plays the role of Rhea's servant to further his master's agendas. While Rhea's intention with the festival was to prevent the birth of logic, Prehevil's goal is entirely different. The Harlequin simply wishes to recruit worthy servants for his master. And who is his master, you ask? Well, the only way to find out is to battle Prehevil to the death and die. As our consciousness fades away, we are taken to the burning pits of sulfur, where we meet the Sulfur God. It is here that we experience immense suffering and are reborn as a true representative of the cult of sulfur. So who exactly is this one-eyed Sulfur God? From Prehevil, we learn that he is one who revels in chaos, and one that possesses a deep, never-ending hatred. He promises all those who serve him true freedom, deshackling them from any man-made morals in the pits of sulfur. Prehevil aside, we have actually already met quite a few worshippers of the Sulfur God. It is heavily implied that both Needles and Stitches are servants of the Sulfur God, meaning that Dawn's father-in-law sacrificed both himself and his daughter in the hopes of being resurrected into the cult of sulfur. The Crimson Fathers in the basement of the Church of Alll-mer actually showed us visions of the Sulfur God, indicating some sort of link. The madman who committed the 4 murders in the White Mold apartments was also a worshipper of the One-Eyed God, indicated by his diary and the sigil on his apartment floor. The final and perhaps most important person with a link to the Sulfur God is none other than, well, this guy. Yes, the goat who the woodsman's wife was having an affair with actually holds great significance to the law of sulfur. In the basement of the woodsman's house, you will find a ritual circle. If you draw a sigil on it, you can travel to the moon god's dimension and speak to a man dressed in black. He will ask you a philosophical question about the nature of the world. If your answer is to his liking, he will join your party in the form of the goat, Black Caliph. With Caliph in your party, if you sculpt the 12 clay figurines present across Rhea's dimensions, the man in black will appear again. He then tells us the true story of Alll-mer's ascension, which he witnessed firsthand. To ascend into godhood, Alll-mer had to cast out all the parts of him that were deemed imperfect, the dark parts of his mind that would obstruct his absolution. So what happened to all his hatred and malice? Well, it had to be sent somewhere far away, where it would not interfere with Alll-mer's rule. The very depths of the pits of sulfur. In Alll-mer's ascension, he inadvertently created another god, one who revels in misery and chaos. But the man in black poses a very interesting question. Which part of Alll-mer was it that got cast away? Was it his consciousness or subconsciousness? Is it the Ascended One or the Sulfur God that embodies Alll-mer's true thoughts and feelings? When crafting idols of yourself big enough to rival the old world order, it is difficult to know which side of you prevails. I am inclined to believe that it was Alll-mer's subconscious that ascended on the cross, meaning that his consciousness, or true self, is what got cast into the pits of sulfur. Why do I believe this to be the case? Well, firstly, it definitely fits the themes of fear and hunger more than the other option, but there are also scattered pieces of evidence that point towards this being the case. There have been multiple references to the Sulfur God as the one true God or the one true king, indicating that he is in fact Alll-mer's true self. Furthermore, the members of the church in Prehevil, who claim to worship Alll-mer, are secret followers of the Sulfur God, as indicated by the Crimson Fathers in their basement and the statue in the altar of the One God. This would lead us to believe that they know the truth of Alll-mer's ascension and thus worship his true self in the form of the Sulfur God. Lastly, it makes intuitive sense for Alll-mer's consciousness to have been dominated by hatred in the events leading up to his ascension, as he would have had to endure intense humiliation and suffering at the hands of man. This is the part of himself that he cast out into the pits of sulfur, leaving behind his subconscious self, which then became the Ascended One. And that about does it for the main lore of Fear and Hunger 2 Termina. Of course, I did not cover every aspect of the story, just the parts I found most interesting and compelling. Once again, I just want to reiterate that the course of events I proposed leading up to ending A should not be taken as canon. It's just my version of the story that made the most sense based on character motivations as well as the overarching lore of the series. Do let me know what you thought about my theories and speculation in the comments below. If you want to see more videos like this from me, please consider subscribing and supporting me on Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, do take care of yourself, old sport.